Josh, what's up, man? Thanks for coming on today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
You're based in Miami right now, right?
Correct.
So I don't know if you know this about me. I actually worked at Northwestern Mutual
Cool.
and I have a life insurance policy.
Nice.
So I'm pretty into the whole topic of life insurance and financial freedom and all that. I'm excited to get into some specifics, but I really want to talk about your story because last time I saw you, we were in the same fraternity at University of Miami and you were deciding to drop out of school because you would tell me at that moment that the piece of paper was not worth the tuition and the time spent, and you were super excited about getting into your entrepreneurial ventures. Can you tell me a little bit about your life after dropping out of school?
Absolutely. That's awesome. And I still feel the same way that I felt at the time of being able to understand what the school system is all about. I'm still passionate about the school system and being able to create freedom and prosperity for people. After college at Miami, I dropped out in 2016 of college after my second year. I had a year of credits before, so it was really my third year. I only had 1 year left to finish and decided
Mm.
to go join entrepreneurial endeavors. And I ended up leaving college and got into the Philly cheesesteak business. Grew up in that business and used to own two Philly cheesesteak spots. But immediately that first summer, I spent modeling my dad. I would go to work with my dad and I took notes on every single little thing that he did so I could go run a successful business myself because he owns a couple locations, and ended up going to work at one of his friends' locations. And I worked for a whole year for free in North Philadelphia, which is not a great area, and ended up working for a whole year. All I did was ask him to pay my rent, and I just ate all the food from the store. And yeah, so I didn't do anything, didn't make any money. But at the end of that time period, he said, I'm a $200,000 in debt, he was, and he didn't have any way for me. I didn't have any money and I didn't have any way to buy the business. So I assumed all of his debt and bought the business for free. So I ended up working, saving up an imaginary bank of money, assuming $200,000 of debt and taking over ownership of the location,
Mm.
and ran that place for 2 years, then opened up another location. And then COVID started and ended up going through a very unique situation in life that
Mm.
one thing led to another that brought me down to Miami. And I'll go into as much depth as you want me to about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
please do. I'm interested to hear. It seems like you opened two stores during what was a tough time, and it seems like you would amass some debt in during that process. What happened? Like, how'd you end up moving to Miami? What was that process like?
Absolutely. In September of 2019, I went to a franchise show and I was in the bathroom talking to my manager. And I said, how cool would it be if somebody could give us $5 million dollars and help us build a brand all over the country? And some old guy came out of the stall, gave me his business card, and said, call me. And he ended up being the first CEO of Jiffy Lube, the oil change company. And his partner ate at my dad's store for like 20 years. And so he knew the brand already. And for 6 months, we were in negotiation to buy the entire Lee's Hoagie House, which is what the franchise is called, company, and
Hmm.
take it all over. And in February 2020, the owners of the franchise said, never mind, we're going to keep it in our family. And that was, I remember getting an email, it was February 2020. I was like, what do I do now? And 2 weeks later, COVID started and everything shut down. I'm in Philadelphia. It's a blue city. And so everything was shut down. We were on quarantine. I had to show my ID to go to my store to get through in and out of the city.
Yeah.
And everybody was coming in, ordering. And when they weren't even coming to the store, so they would have to come up to the door, order food. And I'm very down the rabbit hole. And so I wasn't wearing masks. I
Mm.
wasn't worried about delivery. I wasn't doing any of that stuff. People were yelling at me, you need to put masks on. I'm getting people walking across the street because I'm walking down the street without a mask on. And I just found it mind blowing. And so during that time period, it was pretty challenging. Our business didn't suffer that much. We just shifted a lot from in store to like online, Grubhub, DoorDash, all that stuff. So
Uh-huh.
it wasn't hard financially that much, but it was
Okay.
a very challenging time. And then the riots were starting, the protests were happening, BLM was starting,
Right.
and my store got looted on May 30th, 2020. And the next day was my mom's birthday. So I said, you know what, let's just board up the stores, closing up for a day, got to figure shit out. And a couple days later, Philadelphia was dead, business was dead, everybody was freaking out, not sure what to do. And I walked home that day, and in the middle of we had no business going on, so I closed up early. And in the middle of all of it, I'm walking down the street in Philadelphia, and there's kids throwing bricks into Foot Locker, stealing food from restaurants, doing all this crazy stuff. And I was really, what the heck is going on? So I came home that night, and I made a post that said, when you live in love and peace, there's no reason to feel like a victim. There is no reason to feel oppressed. There is no reason for us to feel this way and fight and riot and protest, because we all can learn to love each other. We all come from different places, different religions, different backgrounds, and we should learn to love each other, not fight each other. So let's stop rioting and stop protesting and start living in love and peace. And I woke up the next morning with 400 comments that you're racist, white privileged, you're an asshole, and you don't know what it's like. And a few days later, I got my franchise agreements terminated from the Lee's Hoagie House company.
That's crazy. Because of the
Yeah,
post?
because of the post. Yeah, for defamation of the brand. Because people were screenshotting it. Temple University, which is a big college in Philadelphia, said boycott Lee's Hoagie House. It was a whole thing. I mean, people were writing, let's drag this kid out to the streets. And my intention was to come from a place of love and peace. Now, looking back on it in humility and sobriety and recovery, I can realize how it was somewhat insensitive. At the same time, my thought process is still the same. Like last night, the U.S. just bombed Iran. I'm not into war. I'm not into these fights. I believe that we all have opportunity, not equal opportunity, but we all have opportunity. And a couple days later, I said, I don't know what the heck to do. So I closed my stores for a week and came to Miami, and I prayed and meditated on the beach all day, every day, and decided to close up, and ended up calling all my people to a meeting on Sunday night in like the middle of June, and told them I'm closing up my stores, called a business broker, sold my store, both of them, for nothing. I bought them for a total of $350,000, and I
Mm-hmm.
sold them for a total of $32,500.
Wow.
And I moved back to Miami and got a job, which I said I would never have a job,
Mm.
but I got a job in finance, and turned out to work out pretty well.
Crazy. It's crazy how like when shit happens, it all comes at once, right? And
Yes.
it seems like a lot of what your intention was really pure, and that you were coming into this opportunity really excited, and it didn't go as planned. What was your process in Miami? Did you have any plan on like making money, paying rent, or you just like, I'm going to Miami, fresh start, let me figure this out?
Yeah, it was. I came down to Miami on a Sunday. On Friday, I was supposed to go meet this random couple that I met at the pool, invited me to go to dinner with them. But right when I was getting ready, I got a post to take a course for Tony Robbins to learn how to create an online course.
Hmm.
And I paid for it and took it, and I created the Infinite Success System, which was like my first thing to do to create money.
Hmm.
And it was a course to teach young people how to start their own business and be successful. And I basically sold that to just pay my bills for a couple months. But I owed a lot of people a lot of money. I was hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt. I'm living in Miami and trying to figure out my life out and didn't know what to do. So one of my mentors told me to get a job. My other mentor told me to get a job, and I was super anti-job. I'm
Hmm.
an entrepreneur. Um, but it was actually September 22nd, 2022. I applied for 20 jobs and got one interview. I took the job and started over again. And within 3 months, I was making $10,000 a month.
What was your first job? Was
First
it
job was selling loans, business loans. Yeah.
okay to like for real estate or for just like any type of
Real
business?
estate, equipment financing, any business owner that needed money outside of traditional financing. So alternative financing, a lot of high interest short-term loans that I didn't feel good selling, but
I
I
see.
needed to do what I had to do to make money at the time. And I
Mhm,
didn't want to declare bankruptcy, and I wanted to
mhm.
outproduce my problems, and started making good money and paid off most of my debt and started over again.
That's great. How'd you end up transitioning to life insurance?
I transitioned to life insurance because I've had a mindset coach since I was 18. I'm not sure that Jeffrey Combs, I post a lot about him and been around with him, and he's been my coach since I was in high school. And when I was started making 50, 60, $70,000 a month in the loan business, he said, that's cool, but now you know how to sell, but you're in an industry that you can't create a career out of. And so
Mhm,
he connected me with one of his other coaching clients who was selling final expense coverage, which is like funeral costs. And he was trying to sell me on getting into life insurance to sell funeral costs and then upselling the coffins and the head tombstones. And I was like, I don't want to do that shit. So I ended up going to another event for my coach, and this other dude was selling life insurance, but selling more more about being able to take life insurance and create your own bank out of it and be your own
mhm,
banker and
mhm.
infinite banking. And I started learning from him, and he was part of Patrick but David's company. And so I just took advantage of an opportunity and met him, got started that week, came back, quit my other job, and got into life insurance. Yeah.
Awesome. I saw a social post where you broke down a bit of your story, kind of reading off cards.
Oh, yeah.
Um, yeah, I thought that was like a pretty powerful message that you had there. And it seems like today you're making up to $1 million a year selling life insurance, running a team of 30 people. That's incredible. Congrats on the success. How
Thank
did
you.
you get there? What was your sales process like? How'd you end up growing this business? So, like, what's your day to day to like get to where you are now?
Yeah. I mean, when you were at Northwestern, what was their system like mostly?
So what I had to do was just make a list of all my contacts, like personal contacts, like family, friends, parents, cousins, aunt, uncle, and I'd call them and try and get a meeting, tell them this is what I'm doing, say like I'd love to share some details about what I know with you, try and get the meeting. I sold 3 policies. I was there for a summer, but I found it difficult. I still work in sales. I love sales. I love the process of like reaching out to people, meeting people, and but it was awkward for me reaching out to like people I knew, like family and stuff, and selling in that way. But that was essentially my process.
Yeah, understood. That's how I started off too.
Mhm,
So that was the first thing I had to do. Also, is
mhm,
make like a top 100 list and reach out to family and friends. And my mentor at the time, he he was one of the co-founders of Patrick but David's company, PHP Agency. He ended up selling it for $280 million, and I was just plugged in directly with them. And there was nobody in Miami, so I opened up an office in Miami a few months later and just
mhm,
started building. But for like an almost an entire year, for like 9 months, it was just me, and I would have a bunch. I was recruiting a lot of people, and nobody was doing anything. And I
mhm,
just kept going and kept going and kept going, and I started off just working hard, and I only made $50,000 my whole first year of insurance. So I went from making 50,000 a month in the loan
mhm,
business to making 50 grand in a year in insurance. But I knew that I could build insurance as a career, as a
mhm,
team, and build a company out of it. And I got clean and sober in January 2023. I met my wife a few months after that. We left PHP and started our own company and partnered with another local firm down here in Miami.
mhm,
And I just started building something. And my mentor in that business, he taught me more how to create a business out of it, not as network marketing style, but more as a place to build people and develop other people. And so I moved a lot of our business over from our other company and just started building and recruiting people locally. And
mhm,
instead of having it be network marketing style, we had full time in the office only. And for us, that works of being full time in the office. And I don't really believe in half-assing anything. So I only want to surround myself with those kinds of people. But it was a combination of production of working with high level people, reading a ton of books. I mean, I read a lot and study
Hmm.
a lot, and we
Hmm.
invest a lot in ourselves. We invested over $250,000 in personal development of systems and stuff last year. So it's a combination of personal production and building a team. Yeah.
Awesome. I want to get into some technicals for anybody watching might be interested in life insurance. Why do you think someone in their 20s should consider getting a policy?
Great question. Everybody should have life insurance. Everybody, there's nothing else out there that you can pay $1 and die the next day and leave $1 million to your family.
Yep.
There's nothing out there that you can do that. And in your 20s, you're younger, obviously, than other people. And therefore, you can get life insurance cheaper because life insurance is
Mhm.
all priced according to how soon you are to die. And the older you get, the more expensive it is. And even though most people would say you don't need life insurance till you get married or have kids and you have people that care about you, if you start when
Mhm.
you're young and build up and use life insurance as your savings account, not the stock market, not day trading, not crypto, but life insurance. I know it sounds crazy, but that's what it is. And you build your warehouse of your wealth in this thing that happens to be a life insurance policy, whole life insurance, not universal life. You can't do it with a term policy, but
Mhm.
whole life insurance. Then
Mhm.
by the time you are 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years old, you'll have way more death benefit than you would ever could have imagined. And you can finance everything in your life. Every time you buy a car, every time when you're getting married, when you're buying stuff, when you're building a business, you can use all the money from your policy to finance all the things in your life. And that's
Mhm.
what I learned a couple years ago.
Yeah, it's crazy to me that people put their money in like Roth IRAs or 401ks and it's locked up for
Yeah.
until they're 65, and here's life insurance which is more effective and actually gives you more protection in a way because God forbid anything happens to you before you're 65, your family's set. So I feel strongly about it too. I'm really happy with my policy. Also, for anybody watching, can you quickly break down a whole policy, term policy, and these IULs have become popular now? Can you
Yeah.
explain what that is too?
Absolutely. A term policy is just trading money for death benefit. So with a term policy, you pay X amount of dollars a month, usually have it for 10, 20, 30, 10, 20, 30 years. And after that time period, it expires. 98% of all term policies expire. But when you get life insurance through your job, or most of the time you sell life insurance, it's a term policy because it's 20, 30, 40, 50 bucks a month, really cheap, really
Hmm.
easy. And most people buy term policies. They say, when you have a kid, you should buy a term policy to cover your family. And by the time they're 20, that's why it only lasts for 20 years, your kids will be off to college and you don't need it anymore. That's a term policy. A whole life policy and universal life are both types of permanent life insurance. So they both last for your whole life. Whole life has been around for hundreds of years, and it's essentially a savings account built into a term. So it's a permanent term. It lasts for your 121 years old, and it goes from whatever age you are now, and you pay for the rest of your life. And what it does is it builds up cash value. Now, cash value technically is just a portion of your death benefit that they allow you to access now while you're alive,
Hmm.
and it's been around tried and true for hundreds of years. Universal life came about in the 80s, and universal life was an attempt during a high interest rate environment to have brokerage and mutual fund companies get into the life insurance business. It was an attempt to unbundle the savings element and the death benefit element of life insurance. And therefore, you can take the savings element and put it into the stock market.
Hmm.
So, or tie it to the stock market. When it's tied to the stock market, it's an indexed universal life. When it's in the stock market, it's variable universal life.
Hmm.
And the reality is you're combining two things that really shouldn't be combined.
Hmm.
And when I first started, I was selling all IULs. And then I learned a lot about the truth of how it's structured and that
Hmm.
90% of universal life policies end up lapsing, which means they get
Hmm.
canceled
Hmm.
on their clients because the costs go up. So a
Hmm.
lot of times they're sold as a flexible premium, but it
Hmm.
also a flexible premium because flexible costs. And as time goes on, you get more and more old, and your costs go up more and more as well.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate reality. I'm just looking at my grandmother's policy, and she was sold one of those. And I was actually, while during my time at Northwestern Mutual, I was able to help my dad change his policy from that to a whole life policy.
Nice.
So it's interesting. Why would someone get an IUL? Is there a reason for it?
The reason for it is it looks sexier. It looks
Hmm.
better.
Yeah.
Whole life is boring and slow, and
Uh-huh.
nobody ever created it anyway. So I always explain it that like whole life and universal life, they both look the same from the outside. In fact, universal life has a better paint job. It looks better. It's going to
Hmm.
drive faster. But if you look up the hood, if you had two cars next to each other, a whole life and universal life, and you take the hood up, the universal life, the engine's going to blow at some point, and it looks good and it goes faster for a time period, but it's going to blow up and the engine's going to die. Whereas
Hmm.
whole life is going to be there for the rest of your life and it's going to last you forever.
Great analogy. Now, I saw somewhere a video that you made. You mentioned income should equal premiums. I want to get into that.
Yes.
I'm curious, like, is there a certain income where that, like, you should look into that because you'd be able to still live your, like, how do you like figure out based on what your monthly expenses are, what's fair to put into, like, can you just live off of income going into all your life insurance premiums? Can you explain that? Because I'm interested.
Yes, absolutely. I was looking for the book Becoming Your Own Banker by Nelson Nash, but I think it's out
Uh-huh.
there. Um, but people do say that when premiums and income should match, it sounds a little bit crazy because how could you possibly, if you're paying all your money into premiums, how could you possibly live off of anything? But if you can understand that most of the time, your premiums of your life insurance policy are really, it doesn't matter, it's not about the base premium, it's about your total premiums. So that includes overfunded cash. And so if you're making $10,000 a month and your base of your premium is $2,500 a month, it's usually about 25% of the total amount that you can put in. The additional 7,500, so 2,500 base, 7,500 overfunded is a total of 10 grand. Then you can usually borrow against about 90% of that 7,500. So as long as your bills are less than about 25% of your I mean, 75% of your total income, then it works. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, it's more challenging.
Mm-hmm.
So it comes down to being able to think of it more like like a bank account than you do a life insurance policy. And we flow all of our money through our policy. We don't use any of our money, but you have to totally shift your perspective from being a consumer to being a banker and
Mm-hmm.
think about how loans are assets to banks, whereas loans are liabilities to people. And so if you start acting as a banker, you have to put on two hats. You have to be the banker and you got to be the consumer.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a mindset shift for most people. It's like owning a restaurant and eating food at your restaurant. I did it my whole life. But if you eat food at your restaurant, do you just eat whatever you want and you don't pay yourself for it? And if you don't, if anyone else did that, what would that be called? It'd be called stealing,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
If somebody came into your kitchen and took food and didn't pay for it, it's called stealing.
Mm-hmm.
But you, as a restaurant owner, come into your own kitchen and take food without paying for it, and that's called stealing. Well, it's almost like coming into your bank and taking money. That's called stealing. And so that's the example that Nelson Nash gives in the book of
Uh-huh.
being able to be a good steward of your money.
Very interesting. Now, you said what percentage of your income can you spend for it to make sense?
75%.
75%. Okay. So that's not too crazy. Like most people probably are on that path if they're financially smart.
Correct.
So like what I noticed too is that 7 years in, you kind of your money, everything you put into the policy is back, right? And then you start earning interest on your cash. So that's a really positive thing about it is that you're actually earning this tax-free interest in a way. My other question, actually, to follow up on the expense thing, when you're borrowing money against your whole life policy, can you put that money into anything?
Absolutely. Yeah, you could use that money for whatever you want. On every
Mhm.
single call, I say you can use that money to grow your business. You can use that money to pay your
Mhm.
bills. You can use the money to buy real estate or to
Mhm.
come visit us in Miami. Yeah,
Yeah.
like it's your bank. It's just
Right.
it's a totally different way of thinking about money because
Yeah.
and especially in today's world, like I mean, we grew up with our parents would write checks sometimes, but like nobody has a checkbook today. And
Mhm.
but like back in the day, you're when you put money into the bank, if you go take $100 and put it in the bank, and you go the next day and go ask for $100, they didn't take your $100 and go put it into a little safe somewhere. And then when you come back, they said, "Oh, I'm gonna go get his money and go put it in." It's not your money anymore. They took your money and lent it out to me when I walked in after you did, and so money is all fictitious,
Mhm.
but it's not thought of that way. And then the more that we go into the digital age, the more and more fictitious money becomes.
Mhm. Yeah, it's a super unique and interesting way. I've never heard someone say put all your income into premiums, but it is really interesting, and I'm really interested to learn more and read that book that you mentioned. I know you've learned a lot about finance, and you mentioned you read books. What other books have you feel like been most vital for your knowledge today?
Yeah. My favorite books about money: The Creature from Jekyll Island by G. Edward Griffin, a
Mhm.
second look at the history of the Federal Reserve. The book Money by Tony Robbins is a great book. A Little Common Sense Book of Investing by John Bogle, who's the founder of Vanguard. The book The Changing World Order and Principles by Ray Dalio. That's more of a
Mm.
macroeconomics book.
Mm.
Money, Wealth, Life Insurance by Jake Thompson. Becoming Your Own Banker by Nelson Nash. Rich Dad Poor Dad, of course, is a good book.
Mm.
Think and Grow Rich is a mindset book about money. I have tons and tons of books, but you have to constantly be learning and reading and studying books about money. I mean, I have tons of books about money. They're almost all about money. Yeah.
Awesome, man. I'm excited to look into some of those. I'm actually an avid reader myself. Curious, what else does your company offer? I know life insurance is like the main thing, but you guys do a lot of different things. So,
Yeah, I mean, we do life insurance, disability insurance, long term care, annuities, coaching,
mm,
finance coaching, mindset coaching. But 99% of our businesses, as time goes on, more and more of it is infinite banking.
mm,
It's because infinite banking to me is also a way to change the financial system in America, which
mm,
I'm always been passionate about changing the way the world is. And by everybody that practices infinite banking, you have less and less people contributing to inflation. And so you want to be, because every time that you go deposit money in the bank or you take a loan from the bank, they have to print more money. And so by practicing infinite banking, you actually are limiting the amount of inflation in the world. And so if more and more people practiced infinite banking, the cost of inflation would go down and the economy would improve.
that's amazing. Imagine a world where everyone is financially stable.
Yes, that's what I mean. What about it was interesting most to you?
Life insurance?
Yes, or and infinite
Well,
banking itself.
I'll tell you, actually, I was looking for a job in finance. Most of what I would get is sales jobs. And learning about that process was what got me into investing, got me into getting my own policy. I was just interested in personal finance for myself when I was working that job, but it taught me so much about how other people treat their finances because I would sit down with people and someone who looks like they're setting the world on fire, they're driving a Lambo and they're doing this and that and they look rich. I would find out they're in hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt and they're playing this whole facade. Whereas the people who actually have a lot of money are the people who would live humbly and put their money into life insurance. Like I met people who worked normal 9 to 5 jobs and had were more than financially comfortable. So that process taught me a lot and got me more interested into personal finance and learn more about it.
Heard. What were the people that you experienced that had Lambos, living the
Hmm.
Miami lifestyle? I call it. I mean,
Hmm.
what were they doing? I mean, what kind of jobs or ages were they?
A lot of them, there are only like a few that I could really think of, but they had their own companies and just weren't really mindful about how they were spending their money.
Understood. Yeah, I experienced the same thing as well. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's very interesting. Yeah, I drive a Chevy Equinox that my mentor who passed away gave me before he passed away, and the air conditioning was broken last week, and I had to take it into the shop, and I have no desire to have other stuff. It's you got to live humbly and invest in yourself. I don't invest in anything beside me, my business, and
Mm-hmm.
our future. Yeah,
So no stocks. You don't invest in any
zero.
stocks.
I have zero stocks.
What's your thought process behind that? 'Cause I mentioned like you could borrow your money against your policy and put it into anything. Why not like double down into other investments as well?
You could. I mean, I doubled down on me.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna wake up one day and be half of what I was before,
Mm-hmm.
which the stock market can be. My business is also very profitable, so I can put more money into my company and receive more money than the stock market.
Mm-hmm.
I also, beside investing in individual stocks that somebody might enjoy investing in, 99% of investors in mutual funds do worse than if they just invested in the S&P. And to me, I I grow a lot more than 13% per year. I grow a lot more than 10% per year. I grow a lot more than 5% per year, whatever way you want to look at it. And I don't endorse Wall Street. I don't endorse the government. I don't endorse the banking cabal. And I don't want to give money to what Barry James Dyke, it's a great book called The Pirates of Manhattan. I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to support the agenda behind money.
Mm-hmm.
So the only thing that I find that is not part of that is in the insurance space, not property and casualty, not health insurance, because I think they both have major challenges, but life insurance companies and me. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's a great, unique perspective, and I totally see where you're coming from. Can you also tell me about? I noticed that you do a lot of stuff with 10x Grant Cardone. Can you tell me about that?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, grant systems, we've adopted a lot of them. At first, it was just I'm training my team on sales a lot, and it was taking a lot of my time.
Mm-hmm.
And to leverage my own time, I said, who's the best person that I can think of in sales? And Grant Cardone. So we just got our team on Cardone University. And then we got into we were on a real estate webinar, and
Mm-hmm.
my wife is a former real estate agent. She's like, we have to buy a house. We have to buy a house. I'm like, Robert Kiyosaki says not to buy a house, so I'm not buying a house.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I don't care what you say. I'm not buying a house. But I got on a Cardone event or
Mm-hmm.
webinar, and I learned about multifamily. And like, I
Right.
could see myself owning an apartment building. I just don't want to own a home. I don't want to have to deal with the toilets and the termites and all the bullshit, but I want to own a building. And
Mm-hmm.
so I got started in the real estate club and started learning about real estate. Haven't invested in any real estate, but I've learned in the last year a ton about real estate. And same thing, when I have 100 grand, it's like, do I go invest in real estate or my business? One's going to give me 5 to 8% cash flow every year. One's going to give me 40 to 60% cash flow every year. So there you go. See, whatever I'm saying is truth. There you go. Got some fireworks. I don't know what
Yeah,
that
that's crazy. The fireworks just came out.
means. So
Wasn't expecting that.
I don't know how to do that again. Oh, there you go.
Oh, is
Cool.
it the? Oh, that's
It's
great.
the double fist, I guess. Um,
That's not working.
but that's I mean that's just that. And then he also just the way that he thinks. Like we both are very anti the government, anti
Mhm.
IRS, anti Federal Reserve, and there's not a lot of people that think that way. So the more that I surround myself in his ecosystem, you know, the bigger that I think. He's
Mhm.
not perfect. Nobody's perfect.
Mhm.
He has a lot of, he's definitely comes from a place of ego sometimes, and he doesn't say all the right things all the time. But neither does the president, and neither do I, and it's all good. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's awesome that you recognize that and could put it out there. And I feel like yeah, nobody's perfect, right? And a lot of people also are dealing with their egos, but what he has done is incredibly It's incredible. How did that process work? Like signing your team up, like was it costly?
I mean, it depends what costly. Costly is all relevant, right?
Right.
I got started. We started up our team with it's $250 a person, essentially, or 249 a person to get everyone set up on Cardone University,
Hmm.
and we have a weekly coaching call with with a 10x business coach.
Hmm.
So they have a coach, Coach Brad. He's awesome. And what it does for me is it frees up some of my time to have to do everything sales training,
Hmm.
and it offers another perspective. So it's just not Josh saying that you should do
Hmm.
this, but I'm
Hmm.
leveraging a billionaire's sales process. That's the way that I
Hmm.
look at it. And so if I can invest X amount of dollars in my people and they can do a little bit better than they would if they didn't have it,
Yeah.
it's worth it to me.
Yeah.
That's how I think about everything.
That
Yeah.
seems totally worth it. 250 per person for training like that.
Yeah.
What are like the basic principles of the training?
It's video modules every single week. So we
Mhm.
have they do like 2 or 3 videos or like 10 or 15 minutes every single day of training. And
Mhm.
so the whole premise is that if you're not training and role playing every single day, then you're not getting better every single day. So we train and role play every day on Cardone University, and then we train our team every day and then role play every day on what we're doing. So we have
Mhm.
a very high, intense, focused, productive culture
Mhm.
of getting better, almost like a football team every single time or a fraternity. I've leveraged the frat and
Mhm.
football a lot of being able to be committed. We have systems and procedures to how we operate. So it's really like macro level. It's that you have to train and role play every day because even Grant Cardone gets rusty. He says that you get rusty within 12 hours if you're not practicing.
Awesome. So a lot of practice.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm gonna give you some of my wrap up questions now. I'm curious,
Yeah.
what's a day in the life like for you?
A day in the life for me, I
I
wake up
know
at
it's a long one, right?
It's okay. It's the same every single day. It's easy. I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning every single day. At 3:15, I come into here. This is our office in our home. I pray. I meditate. I do transcendental meditation for 20 minutes every single day. Then I read the Bible for about a half an hour. Then I wake up my wife, and then I go to the gym, and then I come back, and then I walk the dog, get ready, take a shower, go to work, and from 7 to 8, I just do Josh time. Like I'm pretty much talking to Chat GPT for a whole
Mhm.
hour where
Mhm.
I'm working on systems and making everything more efficient. And then I work from 8:30 to 9ish, 8:30 a.m. to 9ish p.m.
Mhm.
And then I'll come home and do my best to go to bed between 10 and 11 and wake up and do it all over again.
Seems like an intense resume for a lot of people who are listening. For you, it's probably seems natural. What's the key to keeping you in check with that day to day?
Having a big target, having big goals, big dreams, and big aspirations. Grant says that you have to have such a big target that you're willing to endure the suffering. You have to go through it. It's like when I read the Bible, it's like the you have to have such a big target that you're willing to go to jail, you're willing to get beheaded, you're willing to get killed, and every great leader of all time has always gone through all of that stuff, all that crap to like have to have a big target. I want to change the way that people think. I want to change the way that people are. I want to change something about the world. And most of them end up going to prison or getting assassinated. And you have to have a big target that drives you every single day. So if you're not willing to wake up early and stay up late, it's probably because your goals and dreams aren't big enough.
Hmm. So the excitement of those, if your targets, is what keeps you locked in and dialed into that.
Yes, and I wouldn't say I'm excited. Like I don't. I feel like it's a misconception. I'm not like jacked up about my goals and dreams, but if I want to do this, I have. It's like a have to be thing. Like I have to do these things every single day in order to get this. That's my thought process. It's like every day I have to do these little things so it'll compound over time. That's my thought.
Okay, so based on that, if you couldn't fail, and it seems like the way that you're working, you already don't believe you're going to fail. What does your life look like? How does it turn out?
I do the same thing every single day, because failure. I mean, you're gonna fail. I think I think you're gonna fail along the way.
Mhm,
So this is whatever enter whatever work is between 7 a.m. and 10 p.m. 15 hours a day.
mhm,
Whatever you do that for that long every single day, and the middle of the day. I mean, the ends of the day, the bookends I call them. Those are those are my time for my mind and my body, and then the work enters in the beginning. But I would do the same thing every single day. I mean, if I knew I was going to die next week, I'd
mhm.
probably write a bunch of books in like a week, or
Really?
make a lot of content or something. um but I work like the way that I work, and it doesn't matter how I work. Yeah.
I guess where I was getting at more is what are those big goals?
The big goals are to change. I have three main targets that I work towards. One is to revolutionize the financial system in America, to
Mhm.
abolish the Federal Reserve, and to change the way people think about money so we have less broke people and less poverty and more prosperity and wealth. Second goal would be to revolutionize the education system so that kids grow up believing in themselves, and kids grow up in a mindset that they can do anything they want no matter where they come from. I don't care whether you grow up in the hood and your family, you don't know who your parents are, and you grow up in a whatever, the worst possible scenario that you could possibly think of, or if you grow up and you have privilege. Everyone should be able to believe that they can be successful. And then the third is to revolutionize the way we think about God and consciousness, and bring people closer to source. Those are the three things that God put me here to do.
Those are massive, and I'm excited to see how you do accomplishing those things. I mean, those I like. What I really love about those is that they're not tied to yourself; they're tied to a much higher cause.
With with the higher cause will come the benefits of life. Uh, you have to believe that everything will be taken care of if you pursue something great, and it's hard sometimes, but it's worth it.
Well done, really inspiring. All the work you've been doing. Keep keep grinding. People see it. This is the Better Road podcast. I ask everybody this question: what makes your life better?
What makes my life better?
Hmm. Could be anything.
What makes my life better now is being married, having a wife that supports me and guides me, and also having a relationship with God. Those are the two things to me. No matter what, no matter how tough it is, I come back to those are my two rocks in my life.
I
Yeah.
love those answers. Now, anyone on this podcast that you think would enjoy being on here?
Other people that would enjoy being on the podcast.
Mhm.
Yeah, a ton of people. I mean, I would love like in terms of referring people to you.
Yeah, or just like
Yeah.
first person that comes to mind.
First person that comes to mind is my wife.
Okay.
Um, Other people that come to mind are other entrepreneurial people down here that I can connect you with. Um, you know, most people like to talk about their story, but a lot of times as entrepreneurs, we hold it all in,
Yeah.
because it's a bunch of you have to hold in this facade that everything's cool, and they've been through a
Hmm.
bunch of bullshit. Yeah, I can connect you with a bunch of people that I believe would be good people to connect with. Yeah.
Awesome. That'd be awesome. I'd love to connect with you next time I'm down in Miami too. It's long overdue. Anyone wants to connect with you online, what's the best way to do so?
You can text my personal cell phone, 305-345-9102. That's cool with me. And also on Instagram, Josh Waxman Success. That's what I look at the most.
Hmm.
On Facebook, Josh Waxman, and my YouTube videos are Revolution EDU. But I look at Instagram the most. But if you want to directly call me, that's cool with me too.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. Thanks again for coming on here.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you everybody for watching. Please subscribe to the channel for more videos and peace out.